Hey there, my name is John. You're watching the Strix YouTube channel, and today we're talking about surviving COVID and going through that process because it's been a global pandemic. There's a lot of loss, there's a lot of pain out there, and we are not immune to that, as Devere will tell you, my co-founder here. But just as a company, like what happened, how do we handle it, where are we at today? I just want to talk a little bit about that because it's helpful for us to hear stories as well that there is hope out there for those things. And so we talked about in our last video, when we were developing the gel cleanser, we had to move production of the tubes from China because we heard that there was manufacturing issues in China in February. We moved those to the US, and then basically as that moved is when it started to land in the US as well, and we started running into issues. So that was really our first brush at what was coming. And then Devere is in Long Island in New York, which is very much the epicenter of the US. I'm in Pittsburgh, and so it's like we tracked it happening in China, then it came to New York in the US, and basically, I'll never forget, March 9th, we had a meeting with an angel group. That was my last trip outside of my house for many months. March 10th, we were like, all right, I can't leave the house now. My daughter is high risk, and so it was like, that's it, I'm not going anywhere. And then we started to deal with that. And that's also about when we saw a drop off in sales too.
Yeah, I remember that meeting also. A lot of hand sanitizer, but people weren't in New York completely nervous yet. Obviously that changed within the next couple of days.
I remember we couldn't get you onto the subway.
That's right.
I think we remember that.
That is, yeah, I forgot until now, but yeah, you're right. Would not get on the subway. I think in hindsight, that was probably a good call. Whatever the case might be there, I mean, yeah, so right around that time, again, production issues aside, we were lucky for a bunch of reasons. For one is our main products are all manufactured in Korea, which handled it probably better than anyone else. And so there were really no production delays there. A lot of factories have diverted to producing hand sanitizer, things like that. So it was a little delayed when we needed to go into production for CVS, which we'll discuss in another video. But we were lucky there. The US production was definitely delayed, but it still happened. Again, suppliers, manufacturers were all able to run at reduced capacity in one way or another. Yeah, and then sales itself plummeted those first 2 weeks. I mean, fell 80%. And I think most of that though was just from people were scared and nervous and overall consumer interest in purchasing declined. And then I think for us to shift our messaging, talk about working from home, how to look your best on Zoom, the importance of continuing to feel your best at home. We've been locked down also pretty strictly. My wife is expecting in another couple of weeks here, so we've been treating it extremely seriously. But still, getting dressed every day, not walking around in pajamas, continuing my skincare routine as usual has been really important and helpful for mental health. For sure. And so I think this is resonating with guys, and I think we've seen real resiliency through this pandemic because this is the great accelerator. It's speeding up everything. So this was something that we were seeing happening over the next couple of years, and it's happened now in a couple of months where guys are staring at their face all day. They're noticing whatever imperfections or blemishes on Zoom, whatever it might be, and as good as the Zoom filter might be, having the real thing is obviously better. And look, I mean, the long and short of it is we were and are and continue to be incredibly lucky to be in an industry that's been able to pivot our marketing and shift the tone and are offering a product that even at home is still important, if we're framing it the right way, which we've been able to do. So that we're very lucky to be in this position. And I think, as John mentioned early on also, at the time, it was just me and John, so we were able to defer salary for ourselves. We didn't have a lot of money in the bank at the time, and it was definitely a very nerve-wracking time, but we knew that we would survive at least. Maybe not grow, maybe not thrive, but we'd be able to get through it and hold out X amount of months. Because again, thankfully at the time, we didn't have a staff of 20 people, 50 people or more. And so, for a bunch of reasons, we were very lucky through all this and have been able to not only survive, but been able to grow a bit month over month as well these last few months.
Well, and that's also right as we were trying to wrap up the fundraising too. So there was a lot of investors that it was like we were speaking to, and then it was like, oh, we got to wait and hold off. And so that was when, it was recommended that we basically pause any new investors or really having those conversations. And so, it was basically lockdown mode. It was like, all right, we got to pivot the messaging, hold off on the fundraising. Sales are going to just be, flat or, try and grow a little bit. But it was very much just like lockdown, ride it out, see what happens, cut expenses. It was like whatever we could do. It was very much a survival mode. And yeah, lucky that it was, two of us, that we didn't have to do any, furlough or layoffs.
Yep, exactly. And I think things are slowly opening up. And even if it's not 100% back to normal, which obviously it's not, I think at least we as, as a country and markets as a whole have at least some handle on what things actually look like, right? It's not as unknown anymore. And so I think with that comes a little bit more certainty, the ability to close some investments and to sell the product itself as well to customers. Yeah,
for sure. So it was not a fun few months, but we know we have it relatively very good working from our home offices. And for anybody who's affected, what you didn't mention is you also had several family members test positive for COVID very early on. I remember you called me, and that was a big concern. And so luckily everybody was safe in that process as well.
Yeah. Pretty much my whole family got it. My wife and I were lucky, I guess, because we were definitely exposed to them at some point, but for one reason or another, we didn't get it. But yeah, I mean, luck is definitely not fun, this whole thing.
All right, well, I'm checking in on my battery here, but yeah, so COVID was a harrowing experience. We feel like going through this has definitely, it's brought us closer together. It's helped train us for going through a process like this. And so, luckily the industry has been very much solid, and we look forward to coming out of this a very much stronger company. And, closing the seed round and bringing on our first team member is definitely a good sign of that. And so we appreciate everybody's support through this process. Sales did continue as we went through March and April, and we saw reorders and we saw new customers. And so, the support of our audience is really one of the biggest things that keeps us going. And we started building new products and entering retailers during this time. And so that is what we'll talk about on our next one, is entering CVS and the trials and tribulations of going into a major retailer. Very exciting stuff. So join us on the next one, and that is Strix. You, Moorhan.